Good evening and welcome to the 6 p.m. City Council meeting. Today is June 1st, 2021. Let the roll call reflect that all council members are present, live and in person. First off, we will have Vice Chair White lead us off in a Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please stand if you're able. Repeat after me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did that without notes.
Thank you. We would now ask that all here join us in a moment of silence. Thank you. First on the agenda is one item listed under common consent. It's the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment for the Corner Plaza, public art, and various other funding, setting the public hearing for June 15th, 2021.
Chair, I'll make a motion to adopt the common consent item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez and a second by Councilmember Chiburka to adopt the item listed under common consent and set the public hearing for June 15th, 2021. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Okay. Next up, we have several items listed under public hearings. We'll just go through the list. First up is the fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, use of fund balance for CIP projects.
Chair, I'll need to recuse myself due to my spouse being involved in one of the projects listed.
Thank you. And she's already ready. We have Lisa Stout here tonight to present.
No, I'm sorry. I'm the one. I'll get it going.
Thank you, Chair Blair, Vice Chair White, council members. It's a pleasure to be here in person and to see you again. We're all a year older, I guess. The budget opening that I am presenting tonight, I would consider extraordinary. We're in a position where the city had excess fund balance in fiscal year 20. Approximately $3 million worth of excess fund balance. Since then, the state has increased the fund balance limit, but there are a lot of things that go into that calculation, one of those being our actual revenues received during the year in the general fund, and those vary from year to year, along with our compensated absences, our carry forward, and then any assigned fund balance. In an effort to spend down that fund balance limit from fiscal year 20 and also from fiscal year 21 due to under budgeting revenue as a result of the COVID pandemic, we are recommending a use of general fund balance in the amount of $4.1 million. We wanted to do this before fiscal year 21 ended so that we could move the funds out of the general fund, or the majority of funds out of the general fund, to help us meet that state guideline. So the appropriation would be to transfer $3.6 million from the general fund to the CIP fund and $490,000 to be appropriated for PPE equipment. These are the breathing apparatuses for the fire department. They estimate with that $90,000, they can replace approximately 50 of these units. They have a life of about 10 years, and the ones that they have are getting close to that limit, so they're anxious to get the budget in place to have these replaced. The additional $3.6 million being transferred out of the general fund, administration is proposing to fund either ramp grants, the city match to the ramp grants, or life safety issue items or immediate needs. For example, the Lauren Farr Pool. They're working on trying to get that open this fiscal year, and approving this budget will help them move towards that, opening the pool. And additionally, for maintenance needs for the city, the facilities improvements of $1.8 million. The total budget opening in the CIP fund will be just under $4.8 million. This would include all of those transfers from the general fund. Additionally, the ramp grant portion of the Serge Simmons, the Orchard Park, and the Grandview Park ramps that were awarded, to recognize those in the current fiscal year, and to recognize $550,000 from the Ogden First. This was actually a ramp grant given to them. We are appropriating it to our Arts Plaza development for infrastructure improvements over there. And then additionally, we're asking to reappropriate $120,000 from the franchise tax bonds the city redid for Lindquist Field. The lighting did not cost as much as anticipated. And talking with our financial advisor, under the rules of the bond, this would be an appropriate use of those funds. So we're asking to reappropriate that to rehabilitate the Ogden Archway sign. And with that, we're asking you to consider and adopt Ordinance 2021-22 to appropriate fund balance for CIP and fire equipment.
That is extraordinary. Extra money. So good. Any questions for Lisa before she sneaks away?
Chair, I have a question. So the CIP that you're recommending, the CIP projects that you're recommending are from a list that we just have in a general list?
So these are from the fiscal year 22 plan that the council is also considering. These went to Planning Commission with the 22 plan. We're asking you, and action later will be to ask you to adopt these into the fiscal year 21 plan and appropriate the budget early for these CIPs. And the decision really was made based on whether or not we could leverage grant funds that had been received, life safety, or immediate needs for the city. So this was part of the entire CIP discussion that administration had, but then just selected items that they would like to fund early.
But it hasn't come to council as far as the list and being able to rank the list for those. Is that correct?
Glenn, do you want to answer that?
Sure. So, Councilmember White, I apologize. I can't see you through the many panes of plastic. But are you asking about the process for ranking the CIP the way that we used to? Or reviewing those projects? Yeah, so this year it is a little bit different. We're trying to review the proposed FY22 plan along with the budget. So it did come later. These were based on some ordinance amendments that took place earlier this year. So there wasn't a chance for the council to rank these projects just because it came, the plan came with the budget. So there's already proposed funding with it. So the ranking would work a little bit differently. It used to be that the ranking would inform the development of the budget, but now it's all coming together, so that ranking doesn't work quite the same. So we haven't had a chance to go through a ranking process with the CIP this year. That's one of the things that we're trying to work out with this new process of looking at the CIP with the budget. So that was a very long answer to your question of no, you have not had a chance to rank those yet.
Are some of these CIP projects part of the desire of the council? Do we have any input into it?
The splash pad was one that the council has been interested in. All of the ramp applications the council has reviewed, And other than the 3 that we're proposing a match be funded towards, of course, if council decides that match, they don't want to use that application, the match could be reappropriated to another ramp grant. But Weber County has asked that we start setting aside the match before we make application. So that process kind of falls in line. Again, we're funding it early than July, but the intent would be that the match is set aside before we apply for the ramp grants.
So this is then surplus, basically?
Yes.
Okay. So what we're being asked to do today is to approve the use of these funding?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm not sure, Councilmember, where your questions were stemming from, but I wonder, I feel like I also maybe would like to have an opportunity to discuss as a council, maybe have a little more discussion and weigh in into see where these fit in our priorities. That's kind of where I'm thinking about, especially since these are surplus funds. The first thing that came to mind when I heard about it was our rainy fund that sometimes it's been talked about there. That I consider it very prudent also to start thinking about something like that and having some kind of a fund for that, and potentially other items that are of importance to us, like sustainability, like charging stations and things like that, where I just don't see an opportunity for us to discuss this. So that's just my take on it.
Lisa, sorry.
You're okay.
You're like, oh, so close.
Be faster.
Can you go back to the list of projects again? Thank you. I was just curious. I love some youth sports. That's my passion. But I was just curious on the mix or blend of the facility upgrades that are listed here, how much they'll benefit boys sports and girls sports.
Well, a lot of the CIP, you can see that there is artificial turf for Castile Field. That's really a question I'd have to get with Ed to answer.
Hey, Lisa, if you don't care, I can actually help answer this question too. So that's a great question. And so that's one of the things Ed has been working on as well, because there's been interest of hosting more tournaments here for softball. And so one of the things he's looking to do is to turf Surge Simmons. So Surge Simmons is kind of laid out at 90-foot base paths. And so it's really kind of just made to where only men, boys can play, older boys, 14U and older, can play on it. And so by turfing that infield, not only can he allow younger age baseball, but it also opens it up for all girls softball to be played on Surge Simmons, to where right now no softball is played on there. And so he's looking to do that to a few fields. And so that'll open that up for them to be able to utilize that as well.
That's a fantastic answer. Thank you, Seabass.
Yep.
You should consider a career in politics with that great of an answer. No, thanks.
I answer that.
No, I had the genuine question because, I coach girls sports, and Ed and his staff have been awesome to provide for their needs. So it was a genuine question. Appreciate the genuine answer.
Some other thoughts that have been coming to my mind now and in the past few months, as I've been thinking about things that we could do to help our diverse populations a little bit more. Potentially some of these funding, I wonder if it could be more strategically allocated with that in mind. And I'm thinking about areas of importance, for example, in the arts, and things like that. So just reiterating what I said earlier, basically. Should we have an opportunity to weigh in more on these? Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further questions for Lisa, this is a public hearing, so we can go ahead and open the public hearing and accept public input on this item.
We're waiting for any online people. How do we know if somebody online is wanting to?
You should be able to. So you see the.
Oh, it's up there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right.
Same process as we did previously, where we would ask.
Okay. All right. Good. Thanks.
And we do have one. So go ahead. We have Angel Castillo. Angel Castillo, go ahead, Angel. The time is now yours.
Thank you. Good evening, City Council. I would just like to briefly state that I agree with Council Member Lopez in the fact that I believe that City Council should have a little more time to dig into their priorities and their allocations for this extra surplus fund. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any other hands raised or anyone coming to the stand, so I would...
Chair, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
It would require a second.
Oh, second.
Thank you. Little rusty. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes.
Chair,
Yes.
is it appropriate at this time to make a motion? I would like to make a motion to extend this item until we have further discussion.
I have a question about that. I mean, it's June 1st.
Yeah.
And we're going to have a budget finalized in 30 days. If we extend it, is it going to make any difference if we extend it?
Let's ask the experts. Where are they?
I mean, what I'm going to say is it's going to, unless we choose not to do it at all, it's going to pass in 30 days.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't know what we're gaining if we do that.
I would also like to remind council we're asking to do this now because we're concerned about the fund balance.
Well, so why is that?
We will have an audit finding.
If you recall, the city is limited on the amount of fund balance they can keep on hand. They changed it to 35%. And I think what Lisa's saying is that we're bumping up against, we're right now, we're going to be over that 35%, which means we could have that audit finding.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And the timing for that would be before the end of the fiscal year, I assume?
Yes.
So there's still time. But to Rich's question, would the delay
I don't know
might
we can have a substantive discussion with our current agenda, budget season and all, before the end of the month.
Can we put it in unappropriated funds? Or is that still part of it?
appropriated to unappropriated fund balance?
Yeah.
We can modify if the council directs. We certainly could modify the budget opening so it is not appropriated to CIPs. However, I would recommend that you select which CIPs you do not want to fund. There are some in here that are ramp grants, and the city truly is committed to the match in those grants. And the Lauren Farr pool is also a very urgent need. So I would request that you are selective about what you don't want to fund to a CIP if that's the direction.
So just if you just remember that the budget is as in the very wise words of Mr. Councilmember Stevens. The budget is the main responsibility, our main responsibility, and whatever way it goes, I understand that there probably is a sense of urgency to approve something tonight, and that's fine if we go in that direction. But as I always say, I like to speak my conscience, which is especially in surplus funding. How is it fair that we don't get a chance to review these proposals as far as making decisions about funds, which falls directly under our responsibilities, and just expecting that in 5 minutes we give us a yes or a no? So that, to me, I would wish that it was a different way, that we would go a different way about this. So, I think that I understand the position that most of you may feel that you're in, which is we don't want to stifle the process because we don't want to hurt any of the potential beneficiaries of our of the recipients of this money and these funds. But fundamentally, I believe that the way this is being presented to us is not the right way. So with that, that's just my conscience speaking and my piece. And, everybody has their conscience to follow.
So, Councilmember Lopez, can I just ask a clarifying question?
Yes.
Did you actually make a motion, or just asking if you could?
Oh, I didn't make the motion. I asked you if it was appropriate, if it would be appropriate to make the motion at the time.
But you didn't actually make the motion?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just wanted to make sure there wasn't a motion.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I didn't.
Thank you.
I refresh my memory if I'm wrong, but we did have a similar presentation 2 weeks ago before we set the public hearing, which was tonight. So we have had this for 2 weeks in our corner. And so it wasn't a 5-minute thing. It was a 2-week thing.
I asked the question then too.
And if that's the case, then it's on me, and it's my apologies, and maybe we can move on.
I do understand I do understand that your reasoning, Councilmember Lopez. However, I do believe that I'm not sure that with this extra funds, because we're not sure what it would be, or I do believe that the administration does or should take the reins in that part of it. They know what needs we have, where we can put those funds, and the matching funds also. So I do understand the need to want to be part of the process, but I also do respect the administration for the institutional knowledge and knowing what goes where and how we can best use those funds. So,
Chair, could I provide a comment too?
Yeah.
I agree with the sentiments that he's expressed as well. Timing's a challenge, obviously. I might be a little bit more supportive if they weren't all so heavily tied to youth recreation, or not all of them, but many of them. And so as I look at the list, for me and my priorities, it feels like a pretty good fit. The questions that I have are what else could have been on the list? And I think that's part of how I've personally struggled with the CIP and the funding of projects is, one is deferring to the administration, which I agree with Chair Blair. We need to be able to rely on the institutional knowledge and expertise. But two, not being a part of the conversations and not knowing what other things were not proposed to be on the CIP is challenging for me, because as I'm out coaching kids and using facilities and stuff, I see a lot of different need. But in the case of this list, I do have a lot of trust in our staff that made those recommendations. But I just have to say that I understand your sentiment, and I totally agree and support your sentiment. I want us to have more engagement in budget issues and decisions moving forward.
And I also have a lot of respect for the administration's and the institutional knowledge. I completely agree. But that doesn't mean that some of us don't have also some great knowledge on areas that we believe maybe are being overlooked, especially for me, areas related to, again, diversity. So, that's why I think the conversation is important. But I also respect absolutely the institutional knowledge and the wisdom and the good work from the administration. But that doesn't mean that we can't have a conversation, and that doesn't mean that we can review and make, in my view, and potentially make recommendations and things like that. But I really have no intent tonight because it's happening too fast, and what they explain, what Lisa explained about the audit potentially and the 35%, all those to me, make a lot of sense that nobody would want to create any problems in the process. So it's on me. Next time I have to pay more attention. It's just that when I don't know if maybe I wasn't at that meeting or what might have happened. But especially with surplus funding, it feels good with anything related to budgets, which I believe, again, is directly under our responsibility. It feels good to be a part of the conversation as well.
And I just want to, there's 1.9 million that goes to facilities management. It's not that they're all going to recreation. So,
right, I know.
Is there a list of items on facilities management that we're following?
Yes, in the CIP book, I don't have a copy on me. It's FL007 is the CIP number. It's towards the middle of the book. She's got a 5-year list. So the $1.8 million ties to what is proposed. Oh. Thank you, Justin.
So was this presented in the last meeting 2 weeks ago, the list, by chance?
So I don't know if council's reviewed the...
Councilmember Heyer, do you know if that was included in that presentation?
The FL?
It would rely on my memory, and that's proving not to be all that great.
So I did not specifically address specifics, but it is in the CIP book, which council has had.
Councilmember Lopez, it was included in 2 of the council packets, the work session packets. So there was an initial CIP discussion that had everything, including the full book. And then last week, if my memory serves, I forget which week we're on, Management Services had their CIP list included in the work session information, and that list would have also been included in that packet.
Okay. Thank you.
It's page 122 of the CIP book, and what's proposed in fiscal year 22 is to replace a generator at the public safety building. The Mount Ogden Peak, the communication center up there, needs to be replaced. They're estimating that's going to be about $1.2 million because they have to arrange to have a helicopter bring materials in. $100,000 to the Muni building rehab. $309 to the Muni building roof, another furnace replacement at the community services building, and a tank dispenser for the fuel site were the items listed, and the details and the amounts are on page 122.
Mr. Chair, can I have one more comment, please? I'm going to go out on a limb, so my colleague to my left, Councilmember Lopez, might disagree with what I'm about to say, but I'm going to try and put myself in his shoes and in his heart and just say where I think the discussion's coming from is we appropriate a lot of money. We provide a lot of legitimate needs, and it's probably really hard for our councilmate to see that much money fly out the door, knowing that there are a bunch of kids in this town that are forced to box in garages because this community doesn't have a place for kids to go and learn how to learn the art and the sport and the discipline and the character that comes with boxing. And that wouldn't cost very much. It's something that he's brought up a million times with us, and it still hasn't happened. And so I just wanted to make that point, because as we leave this conversation, it's not about necessarily just about the last 2 weeks and the agenda and the items. It's about years of commitment to this council and community, and just a man wanting to do something for a community that he is really close with. And it's got to feel frustrating for him. And I just want to say that because I think that's where that discussion probably stems from. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. And you're absolutely right. And just adding a little bit to your comments, I'll take it a step farther. But I'll only take 1 minute to say it, because I hate taking meetings hostage. I think about part of what you talked about. I think about, for example, when the mayor talks about so proudly talks about the music concerts that we have here on 25th Street, the Twilight series. And and then I think about how 1/3 of our city are Hispanic. And then I think about what similar events, arts events are happening to meet the needs of that part of our population that are directly supported by the city, right? And I'm not saying in any way that nothing is being done on purpose to hurt anyone, or on purposely trying to leave anyone outside or behind. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that I have 2.5 years on this term, and I probably won't run again. Maybe I'll make an announcement here today. And I'm feeling the sense of urgency to speak the truth. It's called speaking truth to power. And that's all I have. I have my words to speak when I come here. And I tell you what, I tried many different ways. I tried in meetings, in private meetings, in emails, in private conversations, and almost nothing I've tried has worked. So, I understand the nature of our government and politics, and so I'm not whining, because it is the nature of our government. And I, many times when I talk about these, I always commend the administration for the great work they do in our city, because our city is moving forward. But I would be remiss if I don't talk about these things, because that's all I have. When my heart, my conscience tells me I have to say something, and I have to say something. But thank you Chair, thank you for allowing me a couple of minutes to speak. I appreciate it. Oh, and no, never mind. I'll stop.
Okay, thank you for the discussion. Either, is there any more discussion, or I would entertain a motion?
I thought maybe somebody else might want to make a motion once in a while, so I paused. But Chair, I will make a motion that we adopt proposed ordinance 2021-22.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-22, and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
No.
Councilmember Nadolski?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
No.
Chair Blair?
Aye. So that does not pass.
I think the rules allow for reconsideration of a vote before we move on from the item. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can.
I'd like to reconsider and vote yes, please. Thank you.
Are you making a motion to reconsider?
Does it require a motion?
Mm-hmm.
I make a motion to reconsider my vote.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion to reconsider this item by Councilmember Nadolski and a second by Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay. So
Just to reconsider. So make a motion to reconsider proposed ordinance 2021-22.
That was what we just did, wasn't it?
To reconsider.
Yep.
Did I get that right, Janine?
Yeah, you just took the vote to reconsider. Now you just need to vote again.
On the motion.
No, so need
on the
another
item.
motion
Okay.
On the item.
to
Thank you.
adopt.
Go ahead,
Or,
Mr. Chair.
Yep. So just a motion on this proposed ordinance 2021-22.
Second.
I can't make a motion.
No, oh, I thought you made the motion.
I did.
Okay.
I was told not to. But.
Okay. Let me get this straight. We have a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-22 by Councilmember Nadolski and a second by Vice Chair White. Correct? Okay. That would be a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
No.
Councilmember Nadolski,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. That passes. Okay. Thank you.
Can I make a comment?
Please.
I was really conflicted one way or the other because the sentiments for me are very strong about what we've discussed, but there's a lot of good things in that proposal too. A lot of hard work in that proposal that needed and deserves support. I don't know what it's going to take for the council to take boxing seriously, but I'd like to put my serious support behind it for whatever we can do. That's where my no vote really stands, is to provide for the needs of those kids that are boxing in garages. It's not right, not when we have the ability to provide for it. And that's a need that the kids have and will help those kids grow into the kind of people that everybody wants them to be. So that's why I struggled with the motion, and I really could have gone either way, but I just didn't want to see the good that was in the proposal pass us by.
Chair, may I make a suggestion? I don't disagree with the sentiments and the position that Councilmember Lopez advocates for. And I just propose this. We do have another 3 or 4 weeks before we have to pass the final budget. When does that happen, Janine?
June 22nd.
So we have 3 weeks that we can look and see if there were some things that we want to replace that are being proposed for passage with something that you think is more important. And I don't think, 3 weeks isn't bad.
No, it's not bad.
So, and we still get to keep all of the benefits of passing the projects that are on the proposal for today. But I think we've got to be proactive rather than reactive on this, and that's what I'm proposing, is that we be more proactive about that. Fair?
Very, very, very well.
I'm with you on that, though. Okay?
Yeah.
Just to be clear, I didn't vote against you.
Of course.
All right.
Thank you.
And I think that's the whole process of the budget, is that when we get down to the final segment of what budget we're going to accept, is that is the budget that we will propose at that particular time. And that's why I suggested maybe at our salary is that we look at all these issues and make sure that there are projects in there that looks at a progressive budget. And because we have the responsibility of allocating the funds, we have the responsibility of doing the budget. And like I mentioned, my first priority would be employees. We take care of the employees. Then we look at these other issues and see if there's anything else that needs to be addressed at that particular time. And maybe we can do that at a work session before we decide what's going to happen with the budget. But that's our responsibility as a whole for this segment, is to pass a budget.
Maybe we can give some direction to our leadership and our staff to look at some of those kind of things in the next few weeks. I don't feel qualified to make those decisions without some. I mean, our department heads, they know their jobs, and we need to appeal to them and express our values and priorities, and let them help us work through this. I don't want to put anything between us and the administrative staff either. So, but I think they've been pretty amenable to things that we put forward as priorities. So I think it's going to take our staff, our leadership, and the administrative staff to get it done.
That's wise advice.
Sounds fair. Thank you for the discussion. Let's go ahead and move on. Could we have somebody? Councilmember Chip Burka is probably wondering what happened to it.
I actually need to recuse myself from this item.
Yeah, I know.
Because my employer helps fund portions of the funds that are used in these grants. So
we ought to tell her
if it takes a while, it's okay. I got my sandwich now. Thanks.
Okay. Next,
we should tell her that we adjourned.
Yeah, she's probably home. Next up, we have fiscal year 2021 budget amendment, the river restoration grants. And we have Lisa Stout here again. If you'll just give us 1 minute for Councilmember Chaburka to join us again.
Yep. Thank you. Quickly, I was supposed to let you know Lauren Farr Pool was built in 1938.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
I told you I was very young.
Before my time.
It does seem odd that Marshall White Pool failed at 50 years when that one's now 85. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not an engineer, so I won't speak to why. The budget opening ordinance before you this evening is to appropriate an additional $458,450 to the River Restoration CIP. The River Restoration CIP outlines both the Weber and Ogden rivers to help maintain the vegetation and the waterways through the city. It is used as part of our storm system, so it's important that we're careful with those rivers. Engineering has spent a lot of time gathering grants for improvements along those rivers. Currently, they have a WRI grant and a USDA grant that we are asking council to appropriate for $450. And that is the request for you to consider and adopt the ordinance 2021-23 to appropriate these two grant funds.
Okay. Thank you, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa? No? Last time, I didn't do a very good job of explaining how to accept public input. Maybe we could have Brandon go ahead and just do that for those who are virtual and who are here with us today.
Let's see if the check. Yep. Yes. So if you would like to participate in this public hearing, you can do so if you're joining us here in the chamber or via Zoom. And you can do so on Zoom by using the raise hand feature, which is found at the bottom of the application. And once you raise your hand, Chair Blair will call on you to let you know it's your time.
Great. Thank you, Brandon. With that, we will go ahead and open the public hearing on the river restoration grants.
Seeing no movement, Chair, make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Lopez to close the public hearing on this item and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Any further comments or further discussion on this item?
Chair, it makes perfect sense to me from the presentation, and with that, I'll make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2021-23.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-23 and a second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Heyer,
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez,
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens,
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka,
Aye.
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye. Thank you. That passes. Next up, we have the fiscal. Could you go ahead, Councilmember Nadolski? Thank you. Next up, we have fiscal year 2021 budget amendment for the airport CIP projects. And we have Lisa Stout again.
I'm almost done. I appreciate your patience and your time considering these budget openings. The budget request before you this evening is to appropriate $2.1 million to AR-077. AR-077 is the AIP, the Airport Improvement Program with the FAA. These projects are outlined through a master plan at the airport, and the city receives $1 million every year guaranteed. Bryant has worked with the FAA and other airports to borrow against their committed funds. So we're asking to appropriate this. This is actually in your fiscal year 22 budget, but due to timing and construction concerns, the airport manager has requested that we move this up. So this action would be to appropriate the $2.1 million. 1.9 is coming from federal the FAA, and that when I say borrowing from other airports, we're borrowing against their guaranteed funds. So in future years, the city would get a reduction in our committed funds in order to complete this project now. And I'm going to go back real quick. I put a red circle around where the airport run-up that is being expanded is. So this is to help with deteriorating asphalt and connecting some of the terminals over there to the runway itself. So we're asking to appropriate $200,000 from BDO fund balance to transfer to the airport as the match from the city, and $1.9 million of federal funds from the FAA. They're ready to move on this project now. So what we would do is through the A1 schedule, we would remove this CIP from the fiscal year 22 budget because we're funding it early. So the request this evening is for you to consider and adopt ordinance 2021-24 to appropriate funds to AR-077, the Airport Improvement Program.
Just real quick, so they're ready to move because 30 days is going to delay them, or what's the problem?
The concern is scheduling. So they've had Granite Construction on site doing other work, and they would like to have them scheduled to stay on site and continue. They're worried if they leave the site, it will be months before they can get them back.
Thank you.
So when does the federal funds come in? Have they already been received?
So we reimburse the city for them. So we spend the funds and then we draw them down against the airport. But we have a draft agreement with the FAA outlining what it will be. They anticipate signing the actual FAA agreement later this month. The FAA does allow the city to spend funds before the agreement is signed. I have verified that with them to make sure that we're not violating any of the FAA policies.
Hey, Lisa.
Yes.
That's a lot of federal money for a little bit of match, so that's a good thing. How does the, and maybe this is for Brian, I don't know. How does it work when you have a contractor on site who bid and competed fairly for one project and then we keep them on site for another?
So he actually bid out, there was a phase 1 and a phase 2 to this project, and he had bid out both phases. When he bid out phase 1, he did 2 separate bids. So it just simply needs to be awarded.
Okay, so
at this point.
So he would have won the phase 2 as well based on the criteria and so on?
Exactly. So they were on site completing phase 1.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was a very large project. It was about 1.7 million for phase 1, and phase 2 is just around 2 million.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing on the airport CIP projects. You want to have Brandon explain it again? Do you want to explain it again?
Yeah, once again, if you want to participate in this public hearing, you can do so via Zoom, or if you're joining us in chambers. If you're on Zoom, you can do so by using the raise hand feature found at the bottom of the application, and then Chair Blair will call on your name.
Thank you.
Seeing no movement, I motion that we close the public hearing. Oh, my goodness.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to close the public hearing by Vice Chair White and a second by Councilmember Chaburka. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes.
Chair, I love the airport, and I'd love to make this motion. I would make a motion that we adopt ordinance 2021-24.
I second it.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-24 and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chaburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. Thank you. Okay. Next up, we have fiscal year 2021 through 2025 capital improvement plan amendments. And it looks like this is our last one from Lisa Stout.
Thank you. Justin Sorensen was home with sick kids tonight, so I apologize. You've had to listen to me all evening. In order to facilitate the funding of CIPs early, the ordinance that you approved a couple of ordinances ago to appropriate funds to many of the RAMP grants, we needed to amend the fiscal year 21 CIP plan to allow for that to happen. So the ordinance before you is to add the listed CIP briefs to the fiscal year 2021 through 2026 CIP plan. This includes the artificial turf at Serge Simmons. That is a RAMP grant that has been awarded from the county. And in the earlier ordinance, the council appropriated funds for both the match and the county funds to that project. CIP ordinance RM008 for Orchard Park. Again, that has been awarded for RAMP, and council has appropriated both the city match and the RAMP award. And then Grandview Park enhancements. Again, that is another RAMP that has been awarded. Council has now appropriated the match and the city funds for that project as well. The The next three projects, the Monroe Park and field enhancements, artificial turf at Castile Field, and park restrooms and pavilion enhancements, those will be ramp applications next January. However, we have asked the council to fund the match in the ordinance that was approved earlier. So we're asking the council to pull those CIPs into the fiscal year 21 CIP plan. We did include AR014, which is a modified terminal building and TSA room at the airport. However, we didn't end up needing to fund that this year, so that is also, again, in the fiscal year 22 plan as well. And there is funding in the fiscal year 22 budget for that project. So that is in this ordinance. However, it ended up that we probably did not need it. And then also for the archway sign. Again, that was a reappropriation of bond funds from stadium lighting to the archway. We're asking you to add this to the plan so that we can spend those funds. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on the fiscal year 2021 through 2025 capital improvement plan amendments. I think we're good.
Seeing no movement, I motion that we close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion by Vice Chair White to close the public hearing and a second by Councilmember Heyer. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Any other discussion or a motion?
If there's no other discussion, I'll make a motion at this time. I make a motion that we adopt proposal ordinance 2021-25.
And I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Stevens to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-25 and a second by Councilmember Heyer. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Nadolski?
Aye.
Councilmember Stevens?
Aye.
Councilmember Chiburka?
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer?
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez?
Aye.
Vice Chair White?
Aye.
Chair Blair?
Aye. That passes. Thank you. Next up, we have the fiscal year 2022 tentative budget. And we have Janine Eller-Smith here tonight to present.
Thank you, council members. It's great to be here with you in person, even though it's weird to look side to side on all the things. I'll try and make this brief. As the chair stated, we're here to consider the FY22 tentative budget. It's required by state law that you adopt a tentative budget. And I think that that's probably to ensure that if there's anything issues that come up with the regular budget, that there's at least an operating fund there to ensure that the city can continue. So prior to the budget, you adopted financial principles. This is something you do every year, and they're general directions for the accounting and planning for the financial principles. And just, of course, you want a balanced budget, conservative revenue estimates, and has directions on fund balances and operating reserves. You also adopt goals and guidelines that establish what's going to happen, gives direction to the administration for the upcoming budget. It set policy regarding tax rates. In this case, there's not any direction for that this year, and establish priorities for spending. There's not a tax increase this year that wasn't proposed by the administration. Under your, I can't remember if it's goals or guidelines. It mentions that you will consider a tax increase every other year, and just at least look at that. So next year, there will be an option for you to evaluate whether or not a property tax increase is appropriate. Under the tentative budget, it has priorities for employee compensation. It replaces a lot of the things that were taken out of the 21 budget because of the unknowns that came with COVID. There's some fleet replacement. We're also the proposal to move to a self-insurance, which is increasing a little bit the health cost, mostly because they need to build up a fund. They believe that over time that this will save the city money by moving to the self-insurance. We also did change the CIP process and the way we fund it. And after tonight's discussion, we may reevaluate that. So there are 5 new positions proposed for the tentative budget. As I mentioned, there's the Economic Development Administrator, an accountant, a couple of IT folks, and a maintenance technician from Fleet Facilities, which was one of the recommendations from the study you did a couple of years ago. So you look at the year-over-year general fund revenue comparisons. If you recall, they were very conservative in the FY21 budget, again, because they were unsure of COVID. And so although the projections in the budget is almost 12% higher, it's primarily because 21 was so low. And so the proposed 22 brings back some of that should have been in the 21 budget, particularly sales tax change. So year-over-year budget comparisons for your major funds, you can see increase in golf, huge increase in the CIP, and medical services has an increase as well. Airport, 100% increase primarily, and that's going to change because of the A1, but when you're comparing the initial proposal. So as you know, we had the 5-year strategic plan that was done a couple of years ago, and you have wanted to ensure that the budget follows some of the directives and initiatives set forth in that strategic plan. There are 4 strategic initiatives in that plan: economic development, community safety, recreation, city image and reputation. And you also wanted to keep from the fiscal sustainability and transparency, which was important prior to that 5-year plan. And so we still keep that as part of some of your goals. And I'll just go through these really quickly. The budget includes money for quality neighborhood and the bus rapid transit system, fire and police salaries. That's the implementation of the compensation plan is citywide it's very expensive this year, but it was a priority, and so it meets those goals that are set forth in the strategic plan. Also have a new ladder truck for fire, which is something they need desperately. Youth recreation, a lot of money going into youth recreation. This is just a few things that I pulled out, but there's probably more. Because I don't play softball, so I didn't know that you needed grass there. So that really helps. There's money for the Marshall White and a huge amount of money for capital projects, which shows how well the city is doing to be able to invest in some of those projects throughout the city. And then fiscal sustainability and transparency, just the city employees and essential services. City employees are the key asset that the city has. You heard Deputy Director Anderson talk about the difficulties they have keeping employees. And it's not just police and fire, which we've heard about for the last few years. It's a citywide issue. And so implementing that new compensation plan is almost $6 million because that includes not only salary increases, but the retirement and all of the benefits and things that go with that. We did change in January the capital improvement plan process. We were evaluating that almost immediately as this started, and we thought perhaps we will go one more year and see if we should do something different, but we may want to have some discussions based on tonight's discussion about CIP about the timing of that and maybe tweaking that just a little bit more so that you are getting the capital improvement plan maybe a month or so before the budget. so it did change the project amounts, and it did clarify Planning Commission's role, and it did change the process for the capital improvement plan. So we had initial presentation when we set the public hearing about the tentative budget. Since then, you've received the Schedule A. I just want to do a quick review of the changes that are included in the Schedule A. So they want to just move some funds from the active transportation to special supplies. That's more of an accounting issue. Just move it to a different account. The fire did receive additional funds from the county for their rescue team to provide stipends to the firefighters that participate in that, and some equipment maintenance. So that's that additional $23,000. We got an additional $14,000 in WACOG funds for street construction. And then there was an increase in the Central Weber sewer charges. And rather than increase rates, they just pulled that money from retained earnings. So again, an accounting thing. Airport, you just approved a budget amendment for FY21. And so this backs out those funds from the FY22 budget where it was originally planned. The same here for BDO. It's part of that airport. And then the major grants, we did get a little bit more money in CDBG funds than they had initially expected. And so they've programmed those for administrative and operations in those programs. So the proposed tentative budget that the mayor made in early May was $217,000 plus, and Schedule A makes a reduction in $2.2 million to make the final tentative budget $215,149. $250,149 plus 800. So here is the budget process. I've just kind of marked where we are with the big red and blue arrow. We're adopting the tentative budget. You still will have consideration for the RDA and the MBA budgets. There'll be some opportunities for initial input or additional input from the residents and the city, and then on June 22nd, you will adopt the final FY22 budget. And with that will come the Schedule A1, where there can be some additional changes to that budget. So that is the presentation for the FY22 tentative budget. Do you have any questions?
Thank you. Okay. If there's no questions, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on this on the fiscal year 2022 tentative budget. Okay, we do have one hand raised. Angel Castilla, the time is now yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Angel Castillo, Ogden resident. I'd like to thank the City Council for the time that they're going to be putting in to make sure that this budget is properly considered as meeting the needs of the people and the districts that you represent. The City Council's legislative job is to be a co-equal partner in the way that we run our city. And I strongly encourage you in the next 3 weeks that you have going into the budget to consider everything that's been presented so far and the discussion and the votes that were made today and how we're going to be spending money as a city. Over $200 million is a lot of money, and we do some really good things with that money, and we do some things with that money not as well as we could. And so I know that we have to pass this, and I know it's not the be-all, end-all. You have 3 more weeks to go into that session, but I'd like you to just pause and consider your power, and that you should be wielding it according to the people you represent, and that your choices should be what you were elected for leading for the highest good, and having a co-equal branch of government we have with the strong mayor and the City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel.
Chair, seeing no more hands or any movement in the audience, I make a motion that we close the public hearing on this item.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to close the public hearing on this item and a second by Councilmember Lopez. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That passes. Any further discussion or comment or a motion?
Chair, if I can take a second. Nothing on the agenda this week, but I think that last week presented a very unique and I'm going to say odd circumstance that hasn't happened in my tenure on the council, where we had an even number of council members, and it was exactly split on a vote on the honorary street name, and so nothing passed. But I want to clarify. I made some discussions or some intention to change my vote because I was thinking that I could, and as it turns out, I didn't need to. But
so, Chair, you might invite.
Sure.
We haven't voted on the tentative budget yet.
Oh, beg my
So
pardon.
if you could just
let me not get ahead of myself. Sorry, I will hold that thought.
I was waiting to see how you tied it in. He's very eloquent. I know this is going to come around.
Thought one of his dads.
Okay.
Yep, I did. I thought somehow this is really going to be good.
Sometimes I lose my place. What can I say?
Okay.
Okay, then I will make a motion then that we adopt proposed ordinance 2021-26, and I'll hold that other thought.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to adopt proposed ordinance 2021-26 and a second by Vice Chair White. This is a roll call vote.
Councilmember Stevens.
Aye.
Councilmember Chiburka.
Aye.
Councilmember Heyer.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilmember Nadolski.
Aye.
Vice Chair White.
Aye.
Chair Blair.
Aye, that passes. And before we go on, do you want to continue your thoughts?
Yes, please. I won't rehash the first part. Hopefully everybody got it amidst the confusion that I caused. Sorry about that. But there are some things that I wanted to point out that with a split decision like a 3-3, where our council requires a four votes to pass something, nothing would have passed. It was an odd circumstance that presented itself. I, being the council member that represents District 2, that this proposal is in, and because of my tenure on the council, I feel an obligation that Ms. Keogh's proposal or her petition was vested in, because she's had it in for so long. It's been in a long time. And so I think it deserves a legitimate vote that does have some, with all seven of us here, 7 votes can't be divided in 2 equally. So something will pass, either a denial of it or a passage of it. I talked with Anna Keogh about if she was willing to reapply. Her appetite for that is passed. I've talked to all of you at some length, and many of you still have some concerns, and I honor those. I think those, the things that you have brought up have some legitimacy and certainly deserve some conversation about that. But I still think it's unsettled, and I think there are some concerns that our rules require us to make a motion to reconsider within the following 2 weeks. So I am going to postpone my motion to reconsider this until next week so that there can be some more discussion had. And but I think at some point we do need to have a real vote on this item, lest it just fail because it just, it just frittered away. I just don't think that's a right thing to do to a citizen's petition who is in good faith, and with all the work that Anna has done to try to comply with everybody's concerns. I think it needs a vote. I think it needs a real vote.
Chair, can I speak to his comments?
Thank you. Yeah.
First, I want to apologize to the council and the community for not being here last week. I didn't mean to cause so much trouble. Guess for those of you that know, I mentioned it a few times tonight. I'm really passionate about helping kids in the community, and I've always coached girls softball. And when the schedule came out this year and all the games were on Tuesdays, I just was like, oh my gosh, of course. During budget season. But I just have to tell you guys, there was just no way I was going to let those girls down. Those kids, I love those kids dearly. And some of those girls, they like softball and they grow and they're better because of it. Some of those girls need softball. I'm telling you, some of those kids just need to be there and need to do that. And I just couldn't, for the love of me, not be there for them. So I apologize for being gone. And in light of that, I honor the comments you made, Councilmember Heyer. I need to be forthcoming and say that our last game is next Tuesday. And there's no way I'm letting those girls down. And so I would encourage you, if you feel that need, to do it tonight, so we can help. Because you're right, Anna is a good person who's put good faith effort into this. And if you feel she deserves an answer, I wouldn't disagree with that.
If I can just say this, I don't think that a motion to reconsider is in any way signaling that it would pass. I think it's just saying we're interested in hearing her new proposal that she's modified based on information she received last week. But at some point you will be back and we can have a real vote. But the motion to reconsider is just so that we can have some more time for discussion and a vote.
Just know that it could be another 3-3. I'm coaching those kids.
Oh, I hear you.
Yeah, that's what he was saying, that it could also be a tie next week on your motion to reconsider.
Well, I was kind of appealing to the rest of you guys to realize that a vote never really, it was if a vote to deny was made last week and it was a 3-3 vote, it doesn't automatically say, well, it must have passed because it didn't get denied. And I'm just appealing to your good judgment and your consciences to let us have a reconsideration and a real vote. That's all I'm asking for.
I think Anna deserves that vote in what she's done, and Ben, you're in the right place there. Maybe you could call in and do it that way, but I think Anna needs that satisfaction, and we need to take care of it for her.
Chair, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
So I just want to say, I guess I just have some concerns over this sort of rhetoric around a real vote or not. And I'm not arguing whether we should have the reconsideration or not. I guess, to me, whoever is here for a vote, then that is a real vote, And so I get what you're saying, but I just don't want to give the impression that we don't think when all of us can't be present that whatever stands is not what we all decided. To me, that's just a questionable way to put it. Also, I think I've already let the council office know that I'll be out of town next week, and I may or may not be able to call in. So.
Janine, can I just ask a clarifying question? Sure. If Councilmember Heyer were to make a motion to reconsider next week, it would not be on the agenda, so we couldn't vote on it. All we would be doing is just taking a motion to reconsider, correct? We couldn't actually vote on it next week.
Right. So
Yeah.
he could make the motion tonight. The motion to reconsider does not need to be on the agenda because it's not a final vote.
It's not a final vote.
And if a motion to reconsider passed tonight, then we could schedule it out whenever somebody, we know that the full council will be here.
Well, then with that information, Chair, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the honorary street name petition that we voted on last week.
I second it.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer for reconsideration of the, I'll get this wrong, street name. Honorary street name. Mm-hmm. And a second by Councilmember Stevens. Is this a roll call vote?
I think one thing that just to hit this point one more time, if you vote for a motion to reconsider, doesn't mean you're gonna vote to pass it eventually. It just means we're gonna talk about it.
Chair, and since he made a comment before the vote went, I need to make another comment.
Can I just, okay?
You bet, absolutely. That's why I'm asking for permission.
This is a voice vote. Okay. Okay.
So,
what was your comment?
Okay, so, see, I'm getting old. So I just need, I wanted to ask for clarification on the record that there was a change submitted to the street renaming, which would entail to remove the name Bingham Fort, correct?
That has been her proposal. I think we just received an email to that effect.
Okay, it's an email.
Although my motion is not about that. It's just to reconsider what was before us last week, because that's all I can do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All that other stuff will be future discussion.
But that would be important for my vote tonight.
Yeah.
Knowing that would be important to me.
Right.
Right. If that's on the table, in fact, that's what would guide my vote.
Okay.
And so I just want to double check and make sure that is the case.
Okay.
So, Chair Blair, if I can just maybe make some clarification. So, the motion to reconsider, basically right now the petition is dead. Motion to reconsider, if it passes, basically resurrects a petition, and then you can treat it just like it was a new petition if you want to make changes to the name, if you want to establish some sort of other process before you make a decision. All of those things can happen, but before it can happen, you have to agree to reconsider the issue.
Thank you. You said it better than me.
Can I ask another clarifying question? I apologize.
Please do.
But sort of in the context of what Janine is saying, my concern is if we resurrect the petition, we actually also have another process happening alongside to reconsider what the ordinance currently says or how we go about naming things. So my worry is that if we bring the petition back up before we've done that process, I'm very reluctant to vote for something that will set a kind of a precedent before we've actually discussed how we go about doing these things. So that's my only concern is if we vote to reconsider, then can it be tabled until after we have the discussion about the process that we're going through? We even had a constituent that brought up something that I hadn't even thought of, was having landmarks also look at these kinds of naming issues. And I don't mean to complicate it further, but they are a body that has some knowledge and some expertise in historic properties or land, etc. So maybe that's something we want to consider too, which we haven't done for this current ordinance either. So, and I'm not trying to complicate it further. I'm just very reluctant to bring people back through a process that I don't feel confident in because I'm not sure I'm not sure I'm behind that process.
Yeah. So, can I add, Chair? Can I add to these? So, how would we know, basically, what Councilwoman Chaverka just asked? How would we know who has the answer to that? When would we bring it back? Because I agree. That's also important to me.
Well, I would propose that all remains a discussion that we still need to have. and all of that stuff was on the table. I don't think that I'm not asking for us to turn right around and vote up or down on this. I think based on the discussions I've had with you, there does deserve some more discussion. And I think that there is time to do that if we vote for this, vote in favor of this motion.
Councilman, another quick question. Would you feel comfortable just explaining what that email was about from Anna, since kind of?
It wasn't an email. I talked to her on the phone.
Okay, so would you feel comfortable explaining?
Yeah, it wasn't a long conversation. I just told her about Angela's initiative to look at doing this, making an ordinance that governs this kind of thing.
Okay. And
what that potentially could look like. Not knowing, of course, I don't know what it would look like. It's likely to have a change. Okay. And I said, do you have any desire to reapply? And she said, I've had enough of that. That's pretty well what she said. She may not have used that exact tone, but that was the substance of her conversation. And that's really all we talked about.
But what was the part about where she said that she was willing to take out that name?
That happened actually before I spoke with her. And that was communicated with Glenn. So I don't know if Glenn, if you've got any conversations that you feel appropriate to share or not.
Sure, I can just talk about the email that she sent to me. It was last Tuesday. It was after the meeting. She sent an email to me that said she had an idea of just changing it to Chief Little Soldier Way and just dropping the Bingham Fort. I did pass that on to all of you, so you all have that. So you saw as much as I did as far as that email goes.
Okay. I guess everyone can tell I'm really behind on reading my emails.
I just have one more clarifying question, and
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
So I guess I'm wondering, can we amend the motion to then say we would table it until after we do that discussion? So then she wouldn't have to reapply later, but we would have that discussion about how we're going to go about it before that one comes before us.
That's a question. That's maybe a better question for our legal mind. I don't know that.
Send it on down the
I've
table.
never been aware of making a motion to reconsider that had a whole bunch of stipulations. Because I think we're just trying to reconsider the previous motion.
Yeah, I don't want to cause her to have to pay for another petition if she,
right.
If we want
and that's what I'm trying to save her from also.
So if we reconsider, then what Councilmember Traburk is suggesting, we could have that discussion when we talk about the street naming at the particular time. And if we feel like we're confident in tabling it at that time, we'd go ahead and do that. But what we're talking about tonight is reconsidering the honoring of the street name.
So
that's the only thing that's placed before us.
Chair, may I
please
step in? So yeah, that's correct. The motion to reconsider simply brings it back before you, and then once it's back before you, then you would determine how you want to proceed with that process, and whether you wanted to do it sooner or later. You could have that discussion, and and of whatever might go into the new ordinance, if you wanted to follow a particular process as in your consideration, you can do that even if the new ordinance hasn't been adopted yet. There's nothing that says you can't, do whatever you want to do to move it along. And so that's all up to you to figure out. I would suggest, however, that if you're going to if you do approve the motion to reconsider and you expect that it's going to take, more than a couple of weeks to figure out exactly how you want that to go, you probably ought to go ahead and have a motion to
extend.
Yes, extend. A motion to extend as a second motion. If you knew you were going to do it sooner than that, you maybe wouldn't need to, but you'd probably go ahead and just have a motion to extend. And then that allows you to go through all of the discussion you've been having.
And I'm prepared to do that as well. So just for my council colleagues.
And I think, I mean, for me, that's appropriate because we're holding all other requests right now until we go through that process.
Well, I'm glad we're doing this in person,
Me too.
not over Zoom. Are we ready? There is a motion and a second. It's a voice vote. Are we ready to vote, or is there still other questions or clarifying points that need to be made? Did you have anything, Janine?
Just one piece of information.
Okay.
We do have that pending ordinance, which gave notice of the work session to discuss the honorary street name ordinance, which is July 6th.
Okay.
So that is scheduled and will be on that work session agenda.
Okay.
Chair,
Yes.
just because I'm worried you haven't earned your $100 a year extra yet. I just want to make sure I'm perfectly clear, and I'm pretty sure I am, but a yes on this is not a yes for the proposed. It's just a yes for additional conversation and a yes or no later.
So bring it back to
Thank you.
discuss.
And it
Thank
won't
you.
be next week.
And you're really close to the $100, I
Yeah,
promise.
here we go.
We were
And
putting
yeah, and it won't be next week.
We're putting you through the ringer. Thanks.
Because 2 of you will be gone next week.
Okay. Then I think we're ready for a vote. This is a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes. And then he had made mention of the extending vote or the extending motion.
I will do that right now.
Perfect.
Chair, concerning the honorary street name petition, I would make a motion that we extend that one, which in my understanding is to not a date certain, but this process will unfold as it does, and it'll come.
Okay.
Second.
Time when it's ready, when it's ripe.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion by Councilmember Heyer to extend the honorary street name reconsideration, or just the honorary street name motion, and a second by Councilmember Lopez. This too is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes. Thank you all.
Thank you, colleagues. I appreciate your consideration.
Okay. Now, moving on, we have public comments, and it might be best to have Brandon go ahead and do that presentation one more time.
Thank you, Chair. To participate in public comments, you can do so here in the chamber, or if you're joining us via Zoom, by using the raise hand feature found at the bottom of your application. Or if you're joining us via telephone, *9 will raise your hand, and then Chair Blair will call on you, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Great. Thank you. So this is the public comment portion. This is the opportunity to address council regarding concerns or any ideas. Please. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Brian Waters. I live at 1448 23rd Street in Ogden. So I'm the chair of the Ogden Trails Network Committee. I'm just here to request a status update of the council's update of the board member approval process. My understanding is y'all are looking into changing some part of that process of approving city advisory committee board members. And we're awaiting approval of 3 members right now, which is kind of hurting our ability to get stuff done on our committee.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We'll collect them all and then answer the questions after.
Thanks.
Thank you. Is that all for you, Brian?
That's it. Yeah.
Great. Thanks for being here. Please.
It's so weird seeing
I know.
normally disembodied voice in person here, given the Zoom instructions. Hi, Chair Blair, Vice Chair White, council members, staff. My name is Heath Sato. I'm an Ogden resident. It's great to see you all in person after being stuck in the Zoom room for a year. Mayor Caldwell, hi. I didn't forget you. While you have made some choices as mayor that the two of us clearly disagree about, I believe your intentions for Ogden are good. It would be hard to imagine otherwise, as it's been your home for most of your life. I'm glad to see you in person tonight because I simply have not been able to square my certainty that you want what is best with Ogden with the complete silence that we get from you on a number of issues. The most pressing one to me currently is a concern that you have not responded to since I started asking in February of this year. I have expressed this concern weekly during council meetings. I've asked via email many times. I've asked through council members. I've even requested an in-person meeting with you in case you feel the answers to these questions are too sensitive to answer in public or in writing. But there's just been no response at all. And the fact is that the council members have gotten back to me and said even they cannot get answers to these questions. I'm getting the sense that even they are confused about this lack of response. So I'm going to lay out those concerns. Again, I know we're all sick of hearing this. One, why did an experienced broker supposedly representing the city undervalue the Brown Ice Cream Building property by easily over $100,000? This matters because I'm trying to figure out if the broker was actually working on behalf of the developer rather than in the best interest of the city. Does the city even know the answer to this question? Has the city looked into this? If not, why not? Two, the RDA told us that the broker had marketed the building in the usual ways. If the broker actually told the city this, it appears they were intentionally misleading the city because there's no evidence that the building was marketed at all. Again, this is of significant concern because this too creates the appearance that the broker was working for the developer and not for the city. Now, these questions should be of great concern to any administration working in the best interest of its citizens instead of specific developers. So will you tonight, Mr. Mayor, please show us you believe in transparency and accountability by finally responding in a meaningful way to these concerns. My final message tonight is one simple request of you all in your capacity as the RDA. I would respectfully ask that you not allow this deal to move forward at all until the administration is willing to be transparent about these concerns. And if not, start the process over with a broker that we can be certain has the best interests of the city in mind. As things stand, it does not appear to be the case. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other hands raised and no other movement in the chambers, we can go ahead and move on to comments from the mayor.
Sure, thank you for that. And I'll just start by saying it's great to see everybody in person. It really does feel good to feel like we're returning to a sense of normalcy, whatever that is.
Okay. Green. Oh, nope. It's greener now than it was. Just saying, it's really nice to see everybody in person, to feel like there's a return to a sense of normalcy. I feel that when I go to the store. I feel that when I go downtown. I went to farmers market the last couple weekends. And it was nice to see people out enjoying each other and participating in our community. And I want to obviously offer congratulations to the graduates. It was a heartbreaking moment for me last week as my daughter graduated from Ogden High, and we know that we're moving on to empty nesting, and I want to congratulate them all for what they did in the last year. I will say to Mr. Sato, I feel like we've given a tremendous, you can disagree. We can disagree on that. I feel like we've been very transparent and we've given a lot of information and spent hours. I feel like we've given a lot of information, and I know a lot of you on the council have worked, and our CED department have worked to give him the information he's requested. And so I find that to be indicative of the way that conversation sometimes goes. So I'll leave it at that. But I do want to end on the positive. I really do
We want to appreciate all the graduates and everything they went through in the last year, and all of you. This has been an exceptional year, so this is a benchmark day for us to get back into the chambers. We've weathered a crazy year, and I want to give you all a whole bunch of congratulations and respect. It's been really difficult, but Ogden's weathered it better than I think almost any community along the Wasatch Front. And the study that came out and said Ogden was the 9th best managed city in the United States of America is a credit to our department directors and the leadership that we have here. And I appreciate what they do and what they bring to the table every single day. So thank you all very much. And it's great to see you all in person. And here's a benchmark to start moving forward and to start getting back to normalcy. And appreciate your considerations of the budgets and some of the difficult decisions we've all had to make in the last year. And it is really nice to see everybody in person. And I appreciate your service. And that was a Memorial Day tone that we had. People that put their name on a ballot come make hard decisions, whether they're appreciated or not. It's an interesting position to be in, but I appreciate all of your service and those of our law enforcement and armed services and everything else. Memorial Day is always an emotional thing for us. We had appreciated Council Member Jaburka coming to Officer Lade's memorial thing we had on Friday, and it has been an emotional year, and I think we all need to give ourselves some patience and ability to recover and appreciate each other and do some self-care. So seeing you all here, knowing what we've been through in the last year, this is a great day for us to be back and to hopefully keep moving our community forward. Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Before we move on to comments from council members, can I just ask the staff, Mr. Waters asked a question about an update, and I don't know if council members have an update on that. If not, we just ask staff if they can provide something.
So, Chair Blair, I don't have any record of receiving any recommendations for the Trails Network. So that must be an issue that the administration's still working on. Okay. So we haven't had any requests for approval.
I'll look into that because trail work is one of my primary focuses. So let me figure out where we are there, and I'll get back to you personally.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think you have all three of the recommendations that were submitted a while back.
I don't recall seeing it, but in the waterfall of emails, it's entirely possible that I missed it. But let me get back to you on that. Okay.
Okay.
And thanks for your service.
Yeah, thank you.
We really appreciate it as a city.
Okay, any comments from council members?
I have one. I am indeed grateful for you and my colleagues. I respect all of you. I appreciate your vote to reconsider on that. And that's one thing. I hope you recognize that. And I'm not going to hold you to any kind of a vote. I just think it deserves some discussion and then a vote with 7 of us. The second item is these plexiglass things probably got to go. I can see Marcia pretty good.
I don't have a vote, really, but I'd second that.
And so I think we're all vaccinated. I think it's time we got rid of these. They were nice, good thought, and served a purpose. Well, they never did because we never came back, but they sure don't help this dynamic. So
I feel like I'm at the jail. Yeah. In a movie talking to an inmate.
In all seriousness, I agree. Like, do we need a motion or I'm just kidding?
I think time for that's up, but maybe we don't need one, do we, Janine?
I'm just kidding.
You don't need a motion.
If it helps, the CDC says they don't really do anything because it's an airborne virus. So, I mean, if they were all the way to the top and we were boxed in, that would be different. That's why I said those pumps are bubbles, or what I was suggesting, like the bubbles.
And I don't think anyone's ever thrown punches here, have we? So, yet.
It reminds me of like the House of Mirrors at the carnival.
That's what I think.
Right?
Yep.
To go along with Councilmember Heyer, I can barely see Angela. I cannot see the mayor, so it's better on Zoom with you, Mayor. I can see your hand.
Text him.
What's that?
Text him.
But it's great to be back together in our chambers. I think it feels more normal, but also more like home. And so that's what I look at. This Saturday, we came down to the city, just was driving around, and we passed 25th Street, and there was a large congregation of people visiting the farmers market. And so that's another indicator that we're gradually going back to the so-called normal access. I don't know if it's going to be completely normal what it was before, but at least has resemblance of some normalcy in that aspect there. And Mayor, if you think you're empty nested year long, the grandkids and the kids will soon come back, and your home will still be functioning as it has before.
Thank you for that. That's the hope.
We hope so, don't we, Mayor?
Yeah. One of the most important aspects that we have as a council is the budget. And it's always a challenging atmosphere for us. But it's an important aspect by which we have. One comment today says that we have power. I don't think we have power, but we have responsibility to have an effective budget to run the city. I think that's our main goal that we have. I would like to maybe suggest to the administration that they, within the next couple of weeks or months, that they bring to us a proposal of how we can instigate boxing in the city and outline some of the process by which we can go ahead and look at that and the cost. I believe it should be through the recreation department, but I put that out as a challenge for the administration to maybe look and present a program to us that we could review and dissect in that. And I'm not sure if we can do it during the budget process, but hopefully we could do it just in a short period of time. It would be after that. So that would be my suggestion to the administration in looking into that process. And just like we've had the Marshall White, we have reports from their committee, but also we need to know exactly how this program is going to be administered in Ogden. And I think we have facilities that could handle it very successfully, but it's going to take some planning and some cost to go ahead and do that.
I really appreciate that, Councilmember Stevens. I do have a couple quick comments. I guess since we're back in person, maybe that's adding to, like the mayor said, is kind of the transitioning to the new normal. And so just a couple of quick clarifying points I'd like to make. So number one, earlier when I was talking about it and I made the comments, I used an example of the concerts, the Twilight concerts, and how successful they are. And I mentioned how the mayor talks a lot about that. And what I didn't finish saying is that that's great, as he should, right? As you should, Mayor, be very proud of this event, this really, really wonderful event. And what I didn't add to my thought was that I would, I dream about seeing something similar for the Hispanic community, and I think about something that I call mariachi nights, right? And like I see in the summer months in the amphitheater, once a month or twice a month, I see a mariachi band with the Hispanic community and all our community enjoying that wonderful music and having some food and that's what I mean. I love everything that's happening. I mean, how could I not be proud of those events that bring thousands and thousands and thousands of people? So with that comment, basically, so what I'm trying to say is everything that's happening is great and should continue to be happening. I think we're missing some more things that should also be happening. and that in my hope and in my heart, I would hope that they don't become as afterthoughts, but more as strategic planning and strategic thinking. And so, Mayor, I just want to make sure that you know that I shared with a friend of mine, with a colleague of mine, not recently, that I'm on a Zen trip, so kind of a spiritual trip. And so part of that includes me saying that I legitimately love people, even if sometimes people don't love me back, because I know that probably happens a lot. But with that, I'd like to say I love Mike Caldwell, and I have some disagreements with the mayor. And so, that's what I love about our government and about this administration and this council, that we can have these conversations civically, and we can be okay. We can be okay. And with that, I also love to respectfully disagree with my colleague, Chair Blair, in that earlier in your comment about trusting the administration with the budget. I agree with you, and I'm glad that you trust the administration. But what I would like to say is, I think that's been part of what I've been talking a lot about since I was elected, about the role of leadership, about having these conversations with the administration about the things that we're talking about here today. Because I don't think we can operate in blind trust. I don't think that's our role. And so with that, I offer an invitation, Mr. Chair, to anytime you are available, we can go and talk about these, as I talk with all my other council colleagues often about all the ideas that we have and the philosophies and our ideologies, and we discuss them. So I would welcome that and be happy if you ever would like to have that conversation. So thank you for the time.
Yep.
I've got comments.
Let's hear them.
You're thrilled, buckle in. I just want to say I appreciate and respect the work that Anna has put into that street renaming, and I do want to honor her efforts too. So I'm glad that the vote to reconsider worked out. I just want to say that for me, I don't like the current proposal for the reasons that were stated by the public feedback that happened last week. I was able to go back and watch the recording. I think there's a lot that still needs to change, including in the ordinance and the process that we use to get to that point. I think there's a lot of reasons not to support it. But I just want to share a perspective, and I only share this perspective because it was given to me, and so I hope some of you will allow me to give it to you. We have a diversity commission for a reason, and when I first saw the proposal, I had no concern. I just didn't. But that was because my perspective was limited to my own life experience. And because we made a conscious decision to have a diversity commission, I was gifted this additional perspective that I care to listen to and to respect. So that's where I'm coming from on this. I just feel like we've been given the blessing and an opportunity to see this proposal from others' viewpoints. And if we feel hurt in the process, it's not because anybody's right, wrong, good or bad or evil or whatever. It's because we're trying to hear those that haven't been heard before, and they're just asking to be heard. And when they're not heard, or when they're concerned they're not being heard, sometimes they yell about it because they weren't heard before. What are you supposed to do with your voice when it's not heard? You just use the same thing you have, but you use it louder. And I don't fault them for that. It comes from a place of love, just like your love for the mayor, Mike Caldwell. Disagreement? Yes. Hatred? No, not at all, right? And so I personally hope that we will make sure that Anna is in touch with the Diversity Commission directly, and that we're not like this conduit of negotiating, that we have a community that comes together and comes up with something that works for people. That's that. And that we're not calling each other names and so on in the process. And that we remember that if we're feeling like we're misunderstood or not heard or whatever, I hope we'll remember that that's how other people have felt about everything that we have done up to this point, or many things, I should say, almost everything. And so I think what we're doing is a good thing because we're stopping and we're listening and we're caring when we're making these decisions instead of dismissing and labeling each other and so on. It's just, that's where it gets divisive, is when we react that way. But they're just asking to be heard, and I want the Diversity Commission to know that I will be here to listen and invite and hope all of you will too. From that same perspective of being heard, I want to peel away a lot of emotion that we've seen for weeks on end. I still do ask myself the question, not because I feel like there's been any wrongdoing, but I just genuinely want to know that, and I want the community to know that we're doing things right when we are selecting buyers for properties in the RDA. And I know that Mr. Sato has expressed his concerns and we've heard them and responded to them. But I wouldn't be honest with myself or with you guys if I didn't say that he's not the only one that expresses very similar views. And that's really important to know, that there are a lot of people in the community that mistrust us, mistrust the process and the way in which we are operating as an RDA. And so I'm not placing any blame on anybody. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm just saying that there is mistrust and that we have work to do to earn it. And I know that we've talked about improving and increasing transparency as we make those deals. And that's something that I feel as each day passes, I don't think I can sleep at night not knowing we're not working on that. We just have to have that. That level of trust is just too important. And so I hope that we'll seriously consider and work together toward some sort of a ordinance in our RDA that requires some sort of fair competitive bidding process for how we select brokers for commercial properties, or something along those lines that helps us garner trust in the community and in the development community, to know that we are not picking the winners and losers, and that the winners are not only those that are close to us, that's everybody who has an opportunity and a desire to invest in Ogden. So that, to me, is becoming more and more important as each day passes. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other council comments?
I have a quick comment, Chair Blair. And I just want to say I agree with you, Councilmember Nadolski, and I believe we are working on something like that, because I inquired whether I needed to put an initiative form forward. I believe there's something in progress. That's what I've heard. And then I also just want to say, on a lighter note, it's Pride Month in Utah, so happy Pride to everyone. And we do celebrate in Ogden in August, but still happy Pride. We can do a wave. Yeah, we can do a wave.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We have a motion to adjourn by Councilmember Heyer and a second by Councilmember Stevens. This is a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?